Turning 65 and new to Medicare. So what I'm going to touch on is the parts that come from the government, Medicare A and B, assuming you only had Medicare A and B. And then we can touch on where the insurance companies come in. Okay. So with original Medicare, there's 4 parts. Okay. So we're going to, like I said, we're going to touch on parts A and parts B, and then the 2 different types of options that you'll have from private insurance companies. Okay, so you're going to get a lot of stuff in the mail. You're going to see a lot of books, a lot of stuff that looks like this. Hopefully I can simplify it for you. So original Medicare or Medicare Part A, okay, this is coverage for the inpatient services. So there's no cost for Part A as long as you've worked for 10 years or what amounts to 40 quarters, okay, and paid into Medicare and Social Security tax, okay. Then Medicare Part A is premium free, no cost. So let's assume you just have Medicare Part A. What does it cover? So every time you'd go into the hospital, there's a per admission deductible that's $1,556. So every time I go into the hospital, I pay $1,556. Okay. Now with Medicare Part A, they cover 150 lifetime days of inpatient care. So you can think of it like they keep a running tally. So the first 60 days, you just have that per admission deductible. And then days 61 through 90, you have a set copay each day that's $389 per day. Okay? And then once you get up to 90 days, the days beyond that, days 91 through 150, there's a $778 per day copay with original Medicare. Okay? Now, the other service that Medicare Part A covers is skilled nursing. So you can think of that as like, let's say, for example, somebody had a stroke or a fall and they have to go to a rehabilitation center, or sometimes referred to as a transition center. So the first 20 days, original Medicare is going to pay at no cost. Okay, there's no copay on your end for the first 20 days. Then days 21 through 100, you have a per day copay in the skilled nursing facility. And that's $188.50 per day that somebody's in there. Okay. So Medicare only covers up to 100 days of skilled nursing, which is common. You'd see that on a lot of health plans, like a lot of employer group or individual plans will cover up to 120 days of skilled nursing. Okay. So that's Part A. Now Medicare Part B, this is the other part that comes from the government. So for Medicare Part B, it covers what they call medical expenses, which you can refer to as outpatient services for the most part. Okay, so there's a standard rate for Medicare Part B that it's based on your income from 2 years prior to the year you start Medicare. So they base this off adjusted gross income, right? So the standard rate is $170. Per month for Part B. Now, sometimes you could pay an income-related monthly adjustment based off of that income from 2 years prior. Okay, so it's a rolling 2 years. So then next year, it would be off last year, which is 2 years prior from next year. Okay, so with Medicare Part B, you have a standard annual deductible that's $233 per year. So what that means when you go to the doctor for the first time, and let's assume, again, you only have Medicare Part A and B, you don't pay anything at the doctor's office. The doctor would bill Medicare, like let's say they'll bill Medicare $150. Then Medicare has a contracted rate with the providers that accept Medicare. So Medicare usually pays the doctors off 4 levels of complexity. So like let's say it was a low complexity visit, Medicare might say to your doctor, well, we would have only paid you $47. So then you'd get that bill in the mail. And you'd pay these bills until they added up to $233. Okay? Once you hit the $233, then Medicare pays 80%, and you'd pay the other 20% for Medicare Part B covered services. Okay? Now, one other thing that you'll hear about from time to time is called excess charges. So what is an excess charge? An excess charge, and by the way, this can only happen in some states. There's 8 states where billing excess charges is against the law, right? And Pennsylvania is one of those states. So an excess charge, let's assume the doctor gets paid $100 from Medicare. They can bill in excess of 15% of what they got paid by Medicare. So they could bill an extra $15 to the patient that Medicare would not cover. Again, unless you're in those 8 states. And in states where excess charges can be billed, it's not something that is very prevalent, but again, as reimbursements go down in the future, it could be something that becomes more prevalent down the road. Okay, so those are the 2 parts that come from the government. Okay, so there's 2 different types of plans that you can get from insurance companies, and we'll talk about those and how they're different. Okay, so the types are Medicare Supplement. Sometimes you'll hear that referred to as Medigap, and the other type is Medicare Advantage, and sometimes you hear that referred to as Part C. And then we'll also touch on where Part D comes into play. Okay, Part D is prescription drug coverage. Now, one standard misconception is that Medicare offers Part D plans. Medicare sets what's called a standard model, where these companies that offer drug plans, they have to offer coverage at least as good as the standard model. But the drug plans come from private insurance companies. Okay, so Medigap or Medicare Supplement. Okay, so when you have a Medicare supplemental plan, Medicare remains the primary payer, right? So what that means is when you go to the doctor, you're going to give the doctor your Medicare card and your secondary insurance card. Okay, so you don't have to worry about, does my doctor take my secondary insurance or my Medicare supplement? As long as the doctor takes Medicare, the secondary plan pays off Medicare assignment. Okay, so that's all you have to worry about. Now, when you have a Medicare supplemental plan, the prescription coverage is also separate. A lot of the Medigap plans or the current Medigap plans today, they do not cover prescriptions. So if you wanted drug coverage, you can get a separate drug plan. Okay. Now, Medicare supplemental plans, you don't really have a network because, again, you can go to any doctor in the country that takes Medicare or any hospital in the country because they all take Medicare. Okay, so you can think of it like you have open access or no network with a Medicare supplement. Okay, and then the drug coverage is separate. Okay, now the alternative to Medicare supplement is the Medicare Advantage or Part C. Okay, and those 2 are through private insurance companies. When you have a Medicare Advantage plan, the insurance company takes over as primary payer from Medicare. So when that's the case, when you go to the doctor, you're going to give the doctor the insurance company's card. You're no longer going to give them the Medicare card. Okay? You still pay for Medicare Part B, but again, the insurance company is taking over the billing, claims processing, and administration of the coverage. A lot of Medicare Advantage plans will include prescription coverage, and they often have other value adds like dental, vision, hearing as well. Okay, so Medicare Advantage, those plans are less expensive than Medicare supplemental plans. They often include the prescription drugs. Okay, so you don't have to get a separate drug plan. You do have usually a more local network, although some do have broader access as well. Medicare supplements, again, they're traditionally more expensive than Medicare Advantage plans. Medicare is the primary payer. You don't have a network. And drug coverage is usually separate through a separate insurance company. Okay, one thing you'll see about Medicare Advantage plans. Now, I always tell people there's 3 situations where you're out of pocket, maybe a little higher on Medicare Advantage plans. So number 1 is there's usually a hospital copay, which depending on what you're used to, usually is not too bad. I mean, it differs depending on the plans, but for example, a plan may have a $250 per day copay in the hospital for up to 7 days. That's one example per admission. Okay. Now, the other situation that is usually the same coverage on all Medicare Advantage plans is what's called Part B drugs. You pay 20% for Part B drugs up to an out-of-pocket maximum that, again, depending on the plan, can be up to $75.50 or less, depending on the plan. Part B drugs are services such as like chemotherapy or any types of infusions in an outpatient center. So you're going to pay 20% for those services up to that out-of-pocket max, which usually means you're going to hit that out-of-pocket max. Okay. Now, that's not to say that you shouldn't do an Advantage plan. There are a lot of other ways to cover those expenses. There's also other policies that you can get separate from the Medicare Advantage plan that can help cover those expenses. But that's always one thing that we want people to know. And then the third situation is on a lot of Medicare Advantage plans, they work just like original Medicare for skilled nursing. So again, with original Medicare for skilled nursing, the first 20 days you don't pay, okay, there's no copay, and then days 21 through 100, on a lot of the Advantage plans, you're going to have that $188 per day copay up to the out-of-pocket max. So again, that's the third situation where you may have some added out-of-pocket expense on an Advantage plan, okay? Now, a couple other things to keep in mind when you're first getting on to Medicare. So, number one, when you're new to Medicare or you just get Part B for the first time, you can get any plan. There's no health questions. You can get a supplement, you can get an Advantage plan. There's no health questions asked, right? Now, let's say, somebody gets a plan when they turn 65 and a few years go by, okay, and now they want to apply for a Medicare supplemental plan or they want to change to another Medicare supplemental plan. Well, usually, there are a few exceptions, but usually when somebody's doing this, the insurance company will ask health questions, and you have to get approved, right? So if somebody wanted to change to another carrier that had a lower rate, you do have to get approved when you're applying for a Medicare supplemental plan down the road. So every year during this annual enrollment period from October 15th through December 7th, that is to change your Advantage plan to another Advantage plan, change your drug plan, or pick up an Advantage plan, or pick up a drug plan without any question. There actually is no annual enrollment period for Medicare supplemental plans because technically you can apply for a Medicare supplemental plan at any time once you have Medicare A and B. You just have to get approved, right? So that's just something to keep in mind for the future as well. So again, you have to have A and B when you're applying for a Medicare supplement. The drug coverage is going to be separate. There's a lot of different types of plans out there. The supplemental plans are going to have letters, right, just to make things more confusing. So, there's a Plan G, a Plan N, a Plan L, or K, depending on your state. But just a quick comparison with Plan G. There's a lot of companies that offer Plan G. The difference with all these companies is not only the initial price, but more importantly would be the rate stability or how they raise rates over time. So typically you want to choose a carrier that has stable rates or a history of stable rates, right? Not necessarily a new company that comes in with the lowest rate to entice enrollment, and then once they hit their enrollment number, they're going to raise the rates by larger percentages than some of the other carriers that have a larger risk pool, meaning they have more clients to spread the risk across. This was a basic overview of Medicare Parts A and B and a high-level view of the difference between a Medigap and Medicare Advantage or Part C plan. And usually I'll do this broad overview and then we'll get into some more specifics of what are the different types of Medicare supplemental plans, what are the different types of Advantage plans, and what we try and do for our clients, obviously, is find what works best for them, right? To find a plan that meets their needs and that meets their budget, most importantly. Thanks.